This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this StockBox interview.
Joining us today is George Roach, the CEO of Premier African Minerals, following an updated MRE, that's a mineral resource estimate, and of course an update on the plant. Well, thank you very much for your time. George, how are you doing, first of all?
I'm doing a little better, thanks very much, and it's good to be talking to you.
Indeed. Well, let's catch up first of all on the MRE. So, of course, some of the highlights from that. I mean, a 23% increase in contained spodumene and a 17% increase in contained tantalum. But first of all, before we talk about, the actual detail in this report here, I'd just like to ask, where's this report come from? Why have you published this report? I think it was probably not what shareholders were expecting. So is there some rationale behind getting an updated MRE out at this point?
To be frank, I wasn't expecting to publish it either just now. The resource guys, Shango Solutions, had been given the task of updating this a little while ago. There were additional results to come in and various other things, and they'd been busy in the background getting this done, and they popped up with it a little earlier than I expected. Okay. I think it was very opportune. I think that it's important, as I've said. It elevates confidence. But I think the most important thing with this thing, which seems to be missed in some quarters, is that this LCT pegmatite is predominantly spodumene, A. B, we have calculated how much of the mineralization in the pegmatite relates to spodumene. In many resource statements that are issued, you see a globular figure of Li2O without a statement as to the origin of that. Now, if this is petalite or a mix of petalite and spodumene or some lepidolite or somebody's brought in the Holmquistite and the country rock into it or whatever else may have been done, and I'm not suggesting that is necessarily what happens, but without specifying what the mineral is, what's the worth of it? I mean, if you're trying to collect spodumene and all your grade is sitting 70% in petalite, for example, who are you kidding? So I think that this is missed completely with this thing. And this is the value of this resource work and the background work to this.
Okay. And I did notice that you mentioned in the report that it's updated to comply with both SAMREC and JORC, which I think the JORC is the first time that's actually been the case. And you say it only concerns spodumene and tantalum, and it's within specific areas of the Zulu tenement, namely only the material that will be processed through the plant, so not including the EPO areas. Can we just clarify the area where this refers to? Is it just for the current area of the pit?
Correct. It is the ore body that relates to where the plant has been built, which is what we explored initially.
Right.
As far as the general EPO area is concerned, there are over 100 other pegmatites that have been identified. I think this has been RNS'd already. There's a huge amount of work that needs to go on, and there is a very substantial upside. What we have done with that area is we have covered it with a series of claims, and those claims give us the security of tenure that we need beyond the life of the EPO. It's what an EPO is designed to do. It's an exclusive prospecting order. You get out there, do your work, identify where the mineralization is, register your claims, eventually explore it and develop it into a mining license as a separate one. So we've done exactly what was intended with that. And the upside, as far as we're concerned, is very substantial indeed.
Okay. Well, that's clear where that resource is coming from then. So if I just take the numbers from that resource, that's 131,627 Li2O, which you say can produce 2.2 million of SC6 equivalent. So if we put that number, that 2.2 million, And if we sort of times that effectively by the current circa spodumene price of around $1,000, is that really saying that from the pit area and what will be processed through the plant, it's effectively got an in-situ value of $2.2 billion?
Mark, the value is substantial. It needs to be discounted by various dilution factors that only come in when you start processing through the plant. Like, are you going to recover 90% or 80% or what percent of it? So those factors tend to come into it as you start processing. But in terms of the in situ, that's where we are. And you can see as well, part measured, part indicated. And the other beauty of this thing is that we're still finding, as we develop our blast patterns and our blast drilling and so on, all of that sampling, that close space sampling, is allowing us to conclude that there's measured material, and we're still seeing that the grades that are predicted when we start getting into that close space work are above the grades in the resource statement.
Okay. So that makes sense. So that's sort of the in situ value we can discount. 80%, is that a fair enough discount to?
Look, it's a case of the plant, and that'll be an experience as we go forward.
Okay.
That'll come out. Some test work says 90, some says 50 to 60. It's a variable factor. It depends on the ore body, depends on all sorts of characters with it. Okay. But we target as high as we can.
Okay, I know tantalum was mentioned, and you, of course, with the tantalum price as well. Last time we spoke, you were mentioning tantalum again quite a bit. I mean, with the tantalum there, that you've got an ore body containing, I think it's 1.2 million kilograms of tantalum there. Would you be looking to do anything with that? I mean, perhaps, I don't know, maybe a prepayment deal similar to what you're doing with the spodumene that would allow you to perhaps, have an alternative source of income coming in from the tantalum, while of course the spodumene is in the background going on.
Mark, there should be an alternative source, but remember that in the original setup that Stark was responsible for, they put in a low-impact magnetic separator, which will not pull out all the tantalum. Now, we've done completely independent and separate test work on this. I'm waiting for some final assay results to come through, but it looks as though with a relatively low cost change on the mag sep side, we can pull out all the paramagnetics, and it looks as though this will give us a very good result. There's a lot of water to go under that bridge still in relation to the history of it. All right, and there'll be other communication on that.
Okay, but it's something that you're looking at effectively moving on with.
Very much so.
Okay.
Very, very much so. I mean, it's a strong additional revenue source. If you think about it, you're mining the entire pegmatite. We're not trying to high grade this pegmatite. We're taking the whole pegmatite, and as a result of it, let the process plant do the work and let us get the best recoveries from all the opportunities within the pegmatite. Not just spodumene, not just tantalum, maybe high purity quartz as we go forward, maybe some other stuff as we go forward as well.
Okay, thank you, George. If we can move on and just talk about the plant update RNS that came out this morning. Of course, we're talking about the reagents situation and, of course, the cell residence time. And I do just want to, I was watching back a couple of interviews we talked about, and I just want to sort of remind what you said there. You said, Enprontec are conducting a number of tests that we've set out, that they must come back to us with a summary and a presentation of all these test results they've been doing. And from that, it should be demonstrable that they will achieve the required performance. So presumably that report is indeed back, and you've got the cell residence and, of course, the reagent situation there that they've come back with. Are there any other specifics about the Enprontec report, any other issues highlighted, or is everything else hunky-dory, so to speak?
Well, I think the most important, excuse me, I'm sorry. The most important thing about this, and contrary to some of the completely ridiculous commentary that I've seen, the issue identified by Enprontec, according to their report, is that the final cleaning cells in the flotation circuit were too large, and material was resident for too long. Now, all that fix entails is putting in effectively a fabricated liner inside the cell to cut the volume of material that can be in the cell at any point in time. Now, cutting the volume means that there's less material. It's therefore resident for shorter times and should come out very easily. And this is some fabricated rolled steel that gets fitted into it relatively easy. So I think it's logical that we should go ahead and do it at that cost. I think it makes complete sense to go ahead and do it. And we have other standby situations as well.
Okay.
So that's really where that is with that.
Okay, so those are really the only two issues. There's no other concerns from Enprontech.
Well, they've suggested that this is what we should do. Okay. I mean, there will always remain a concern in any processing plant until you're actually processing what you intend to process at the volumes, tonnages, recoveries, this, that, and the other. So that's everything is directed to achieving that end. That's all we're concerned about.
Okay. And is that report from Enprontech, is it a private document or would it be something that perhaps you could share publicly? Because I think some shareholders would be quite keen to digest it.
I think that there are components of it that we probably can. I think that I'll need to discuss it with them, and I will.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. I mean, the drawings of this thing are not. There's very little rocket science attached to what's being proposed with this.
Okay. And just continuing from what you said in the previous interview here, you've also said you want to go a step further this time and not try to restart everything. You want to go to one of the cells in situ at the plant and run that cell focused on all the different parameters that can go into it to satisfy yourself and the team at Zulu that in fact it is now the correct grade and you're getting the correct recovery. So would that still be something you would want to do when you've got the this liner installed on one of the cleaner cells?
To the extent that I possibly can, yes.
Okay.
It's going to mean running material through the plant all the way through to get to that point. Okay. But that we intend to intensely run and test. We've made reference to reagents as well.
Yep.
There are some variations in the reagent regime. I don't know that we've necessarily got to the final reagent mix. We've got a reagent mix that works. We know from Anzaplan's 2017 test work that the stuff floats. We know what should be used and what works. This is a case of fine-tuning it, getting to the most cost-effective solutions and the best recoveries.
Okay. If we can just finish by just addressing the general meeting that's coming up and, of course, the funding situation and the other options that perhaps might be on the table. I noticed from the RNS, I think your comment was fairly short today. I think you said, shareholders should look at Zulu now with confidence. Certainly what you were portraying, you're feeling a lot more confident about the way forward. I do have to portray to you, and I'll just sort of read one of the comments. This is from a trusted shareholder, but I've seen it from other shareholders. They say that quite a few shareholders are pissed off with the 9 billion that they're voting for. All they ever seem to see is dilution after dilution, only to see the shares be issued in a matter of weeks. So, of course, we've talked about the RNS, the 50,000 fix that we've talked about there in that cleaner cell. But how would you intend to use the additional 9.5 billion shares that you want everyone to approve?
Well, Mark, first of all, underlying this is the fact that we need to have stability. I can't negotiate anything with anybody. If we're sitting in a position where we have absolutely zero financial stability, why should anybody want to negotiate anything with us under those circumstances? So that's the start point. The second thing is that it's been clear, and we've been clear all the way through. Zulu, in its operations and running this, has accumulated certain direct debt. There is direct debt associated with Zulu in country in Zimbabwe. Some of this needs to be structured and dealt with. Excuse me again. Otherwise, what have you got to deal with? So we need to at least put ourselves in a position where we have the backbone, whatever you want to call it, to be able to stand up and go through proper discussions and negotiations. We need to be able to restructure some of the Zimbabwe debt. We need to have a basis for dealing with part of it. The last thing in the world I wanted to do is go out and just do some cheap placement on whatever that quantum of shares is. I really don't actually want to go there. I don't want to be down that road. But I think we also need to remind people that most mines take 10 to 15 years to build. We've taken a hell of a lot less with this one. Most mines cost billions. This one has cost us a hell of a lot less. And I think people tend to forget this. I mean, I think what we've achieved within the time we've achieved it is quite inconceivable in country, etc., etc. So I think that some of the expectation that you can do it on a shoestring and never ever go back and look for more funds is really it's just misplaced.
Okay.
We Mark, let me close off by saying we have a board that I think is responsible. There is nobody intending to try and be irresponsible in terms of any disapplication. It's there to provide us with financial stability and security and put us in a strong position either to bring this thing together ourselves or to negotiate whatever we must negotiate.
Okay. That makes sense. Stability and security. I certainly understand that point. I think in the past, when the headroom's been raised, the shares have been issued sort of fairly quickly afterwards. But it is, as you say, it's a big plant. It costs a lot of money to run at the moment. Is it fair to say that situation is different because the plant isn't running at the moment, and this is really to put you in that strong position for the ongoing discussions that are going on in the background, and the option, therefore, to go it alone yourself?
Mark, answering your question with a bit of a hypothetical question as well, I need to be able to deal with a party that comes to me and says, okay, we're ready to get involved. This is the kind of investment we want to make, et cetera, but show me that this plant works.
Yeah.
Okay, put this fix in and make it work. Okay, I'm prepared to go down that road on the back of whatever. But if I don't have the ability to do it, I can't.
Okay.
If I don't have the ability to retain stability of Zulu Lithium Private Limited, the Zimbabwean company, and deal with what it needs to deal with, you don't have anything. And I think that this is the point that is being missed. It's fine putting as much pressure on me and on the board as one wishes to do, but I really, let's not try and shoot ourselves in the foot.
Sure. Okay. And that fix you mentioned, would that fix have to be in place before a deal could be concluded, or could there be a deal of
Not
some?
necessarily.
No. Okay. Yeah.
No, Mark, we've got a big data room. Our data room is, I think I said to somebody, it's probably, I don't know what it is. It's I don't know how big it is. It's huge.
Sure.
There are parties who are working their way through it. This is known. We've said so. We have independent, ongoing conversations at the time. You can't write. I said to a shareholder, I think yesterday, that I can't write transactionally. You can't write a whole JV agreement or sale agreement or whatever it is in a week or 2 weeks. These things can take months to get done. Just the transactional side of it, the agreements and so on are huge. And I think the expectation is a little out of line time-wise sometimes.
So considering all that then, I mean, what could happen in the interim of any agreements being negotiated in the background, and what are PREM's liabilities during that time?
Well, Mark, in terms of the liabilities, dealing with the last part of the question first, to keep the company going. We have an obligation, I believe, to our shareholders and to the market, to everybody, to ensure that we have a company that is solvent, that's operating, and that maintains the value in its asset. So that takes some money and it takes some work. That'll be number one focus. Number two, there are a variety of options on the table. We've discussed them. They're out in the public domain. We're pursuing them. But I think that it's a little silly to expect that in a very short period of time, one can suddenly get somebody to conclude a detailed review of our data room, and then get a whole set of transaction documents drawn in just about no time. So it does take time. Those things will take time. And that timeline is largely out of my control. Going back to the need to keep the company going, there is debt that has been incurred in Zimbabwe that must be serviced to an extent. We can't service it without access to some form of funding. And I think that we have a further obligation on ourselves anyway to do what we can to prove that this thing does work. I think we're closer than we've ever been. We've come through a torrid time. And to repeat myself, I think that there's a missing or lack of appreciation sometimes in terms of how long it actually does take to build a mine. It takes time. We've done it on a shoestring in no time at all. And I think that's been forgotten as well.
Okay, so between sort of now and Christmas then, what's going to happen? It's effectively getting that little fix in place and then addressing, running product through the plant and seeing if it works.
And continuing with the work and negotiations we're involved in at the moment. And hopefully one of the options is going to come about. Well, not hopefully. One of the options is going to happen. I'm happy to discuss any fallback position if you wish as well. But I think that is where we're going.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, George Roach, the CEO of Premier African Minerals, for your time today.
Pleasure indeed. Thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.